Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Collective Spotlight. I went orange a little bit. I think the lights are just making me orange, but it's all right. I'm going to be orange today. Madeline looks great, so we'll just bring Madeline up so that her lighting looks good, and you guys can ignore me. But anyways, another episode of Collective Spotlight. This time it's a diamond. Well, Madeline's been on Kickstarter and diamond through SourcePoint. The book this week is Boston Metaphysical Society, The Spirit of Rebellion, another awesome one-shot. And the writer is Madeleine Holly. How do I pronounce the last name, Madeline?
Rosing. Holly-Rosing.
Holly-Rosing. There we go.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Madeline is the writer of Boston Metaphysical Society. We've been suggested this book many, many times by friends of the store, and we finally have you on the show. Can you just let people know... just because they're going to ask, what is the Boston Metaphysical Society?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And for those of you who are not familiar with the series, it's about an ex-Pinkerton detective, a spirit photographer, and a genius scientist who battles supernatural forces in late 1800s Boston. We started with a 6-issue miniseries with art by Emily Hugh. That was originally produced on Kickstarter. In fact, everything was originally produced on Kickstarter. And we finished that up. We went to trade. And about a year or so after that, SourcePoint Press picked us up, and which has been awesome. They're a terrific publisher. Since the original 6-issue miniseries, I decided to do some one-shots because I wanted to take some time spending some time with the characters, because, when you're doing a standard 22-page issue, I mean, even when you're doing a 6-issue miniseries, it's hard to really delve into the backgrounds of some of the main characters. So I really wanted to do more of a backstory on Granville T. Woods, who is the African-American scientist who's part of the Boston Metaphysical team. And for those of you who don't realize this, he is a historical figure. He was a contemporary of Tesla's and of Edison's, and did business with Westinghouse. I found him in my research many years ago when I first developed this story, and made him a part of the team. Samuel, who is the ex-Pinkerton detective, and Caitlin, who's a medium and spirit photographer, are fictional characters. In the original 6-issue miniseries, you will see more historical figures like Bell, Edison, Tesla, and Houdini. In the first sequel to the miniseries, The Scourge of the Mechanical Men, that I focused on, like I said, Granville and his relationship with Tesla. And that was a lot of fun because I really wanted to get those two guys in the same room together and butting heads, and that was a lot of fun. The second sequel, standalone, is The Spirit of Rebellion, which drops this week, tomorrow, I believe. And that does focus more on Caitlin and her abilities after what happened to her in the original 6-issue miniseries. I don't want to give too much away and have spoilers. The third sequel, Ghosts and Demons, also delves more into Caitlin's backstory, and also more world building, because I introduce a ghost from her past, who has a lot of meaning to her, and how demons work in the Boston Metaphysical universe. And then it's not out yet. I think it'll be in Diamond in October. The fourth book, standalone, which it's sort of a continuation of Ghosts and Demons. It's called The Book of Demons, but it also can be read as a standalone. We had a successful Kickstarter for that earlier this year, and in fact, it's with the letterer right now. He's finishing up on that, and cross my fingers here that I can get that shipped out to people. If you don't notice behind me, other side, other than the yoga ball behind me, that's all packing material.
Well, I was going to say, it looked like a bunch of books directly from the printer.
Yeah, I got those. Well, those aren't. That's actually packing material. I've got foam and bubbles and bubble wrap and the whole 9 yards. Just we're waiting for the books to come in so I can mail those out to the Kickstarter backers. But yeah, Book of Demons will also be in previews. I think it's October, but I'd have to double check on that.
So one of the things I find very interesting is, as you describe the book, it's very much a little bit of a noir. Steven, really? It's a little bit of a noir story, while also, again, being kind of a ghost story as well. How did you go about trying to blend those two worlds together? Because those are not comic books that you very often see mesh.
Well, what I did was develop a world where ghosts and demons were a normal part of life. And even though some people deny them or don't want to acknowledge their existence, they still have to deal with them. And that's usually the upper class. The Boston Metaphysical Universe is very socially stratified, economically. You will see racism in it. I mean, there is racism within, some of the characters and within the social classes. It's not as predominant as it is in, what should I say, real life.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely does exist. And in my world right now, the Irish are the lowest on the totem pole in the social structure. And it's even though I will market it as steampunk, because yes, it does have steampunk elements in it. It's been aptly described as more steampunk-ish, and I deal a lot more with alternate history.
Okay.
I've changed. It's a very American story, and for me, I didn't think you can't tell an American story without including women and people of color, because they were integral in the development of this nation. And yes, I do have a degree in American politics. So yeah, there is.
And what I thought was really cool, and let me see this. I think this is the right way to ask the question. So you have a book called Boston Metaphysical, and then this issue you actually take it to Philadelphia, and you actually have a blurb in the back on why you took it to Philadelphia. But was that a tough decision for you, knowing that you have a geographical place in the title of your book, to then take it somewhere else, or was that kind of just natural?
No, it doesn't, because at this point I've pretty much branded what Boston Metaphysical Society is, so people know that once they start reading it, it's Boston Metaphysical is a term for the universe.
Okay.
And this universe is very big. In fact, it encompasses the whole world. And these characters, yes, they began in Boston. Spirit of Rebellion, they do go to Philadelphia for that story. And that was a lot very interesting reading about, the immigration during that time period. So the characters in the story reflected the people that actually lived in Philadelphia during that time, the immigrants. And then Ghosts and Demons were back in Boston. And then we're kind of back and forth between New York and Boston. We don't spend a lot of time in New York. There's a reason why, which I don't want to spoil.
Yeah.
Why Caitlin and I introduced a new character by the name of Alma Williams, who's she herself is an African American inventor, also fictional, and she, in a sense, is like the older sister, the friend that Caitlin never had. And it's been fun developing their relationship and their working relationship. And what they ended up doing after the Spirit of Rebellion kind of became their work. So they had to leave Boston because, every great house in Boston wants Caitlin arrested for sedition. And, so she's got a rep, and she can't really hang around too much.
All right. One of the things I thought was really cool also in this section where you write, why Philadelphia and everything, you mentioned that Philadelphia rivaled New York with the amount of immigrants. And then you go on to mention that Irish, Italian, Hungarian, German, and Jewish were kind of the communities that were really big there. Yeah. You mentioned your background in politics and everything like that. How much research going into just the whole series and everything did you kind of do? Because, you've got a couple historical figures in here. You also have a couple of historical places and time periods in here. You mentioned that, Philadelphia was also big in the civil rights movement and everything like that.
Actually, Civil War.
Yes.
It's with the unions. Yeah.
So how much research did you do going into writing the series?
A lot. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many hours, because a lot of times I just take the deep dive and go down the rabbit hole for a day or two and then come back up. And the hard part is always taking the research and, picking and choosing what I want to use. So, I'm not writing a history book. I'm writing a story. So I just need little glimpses of historical architecture or a dress or something to give that feeling and to understand the political movements of the time, and the economics and the cultural movements of the time, because and then I play with that, obviously, because I turned a major union leader into a ghost in Spirit of Rebellion. That I don't want to ruin it. That particular person was actually alive during that period.
I mean, you mentioned it. It's like it's historical fiction in a way of that you're. It takes place in a historical time that we know, but you're changing. This isn't a biography or anything like that.
No, it is fictional. One question I've been asked is like, okay, where in the American history do things start changing? At what time? And I actually go back to 1812, the War of 1812, and so I pretty much keep a lot of things fairly accurate up until 1812, and then 1812 is when I split off and go my own way into developing the alternate history of this world.
That's when things get metaphysical, right?
Well, yes and no. You do have to understand that back in the 1800s, the term metaphysical was used much differently than it is now.
Oh.
Now we look at it as a term, as a spiritual term, and a philosophical term. Back then, when you talked about something that's metaphysical, you're talking about the paranormal. It's ghosts. It's ghost photography. It's very grounded in a paranormal activity. So, like most words, their definitions change over time. So I do get people who get like, well, do you have this spirituality in your comic? I'm going like, no. Absolutely not. We do not, because the reason I chose the name Boston Metaphysical Society is because it evoked that time period. We don't call clubs societies anymore. I mean, occasionally we do, but it was more predominant back in the late 1800s and the mid 1800s. And just like the term metaphysical, I use it in its older term.
And now forgive my ignorance, and since you've done all the research, I'll ask, was paranormal photography being done in the in that time period? Was that because I always assumed the paranormal was something we became fascinated with in the 1900s. I didn't realize people were doing it back then.
Oh yeah, they were big in Houdini. I mean, Houdini was. I actually changed Houdini in mind. Houdini was a great debunker of paranormal, of seances, and spirit photography was debunked a long time ago, but people really believed it because they didn't understand how photography and double imaging worked, for how you could do image on image and it looks like it's a ghost there. It's like, no, it's just like two plates together, no. But Oh no, people have been interested in the supernatural and the paranormal forever. Oh yeah.
Oh, and look who just popped in, Will Sam Quinn.
There he is. Hey, William.
So we do have some questions. Jennifer said she's interested. Do the books include anything about gods too, as well, or are they just focused on the demons?
No, I don't deal with the aspect of God, because demons in my world are actually sentient beings that evolved along next side of us. They're not from hell. They're not from the hell mouth. They are living beings who are, by the time we meet them, they've been dying out. They're just their evolutionary track is coming to an end.
Awesome. All right. I like that. I like that explanation. And then she also said she loves Boston. She lived on Air Force Base over there and was exposed to the seriousness of Bostonians, how they take politics.
Yeah.
And history is very interesting. And yes, Jennifer, we will have the book here at the Collective. So if you do want to hold a copy, Jennifer is one of our locals. So Jennifer, if you need to hold a copy, I have
Hi, Jennifer.
a few of them here. Talk to me a little bit about, so one of the things I noticed you did in this book is you kind of wrote out a prologue and the introduction and everything. Mm-hmm. Did you do that because of the way they're structured as one-shots, that like just in case somebody might be picking up Spirit of Rebellion and they didn't pick up the previous one, that they can understand what's going on?
Correct. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, because you never know how people are going to enter your world. And because I also have a prequel novel called A Storm of Secrets, and an anthology of short stories and novellas that are also prequels to the original 6-issue miniseries. But what they really do is help enrich the universe. And I always kind of advise people to read the original 6-issue mini-series first before they read the novel, even though the novel is technically a prequel, because then they won't have a complete heart attack at the end of the book. Because you'll already know certain things, you just don't know how it happened.
And did you write the prequel after the first 6-issue? Okay, so it was written after you kind of... Okay.
Yes.
Where can people find the novel if people are looking for, like, okay, so I should have asked this to begin with. If people are looking for the 6-issue mini or they're looking for the novel, where can they find your other works?
The 6-issue miniseries can be ordered through your local comic book store, or through directly Source Point Press, or me on my website. Obviously, you'll get the signed one from me if you order it from me. The novel, you can pick it up in any ebook format that you like, and also a print edition through Amazon. And you can also pick it up from me at a con. I always have copies of the novel at the con.
Nice. And where are you out of Boston?
No, I'm actually in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. So West Coast. That's awesome.
Yeah. But I will be at Fan Expo Boston in 2 weeks.
You had to go, right? Like that was a no-brainer.
Yes, I've been before. Once upon a time, it was Boston Comic Con, and I was there twice, and then it just got too expensive to do that. But this year, I just decided to bite the bullet and go. Yeah. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Cross-country flight isn't super cheap, but every once in a while it's worth doing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because I'll actually get to sleep. Yeah, I can sleep on the airplane.
The flight from West Coast, it's weird because the flight from the West Coast to the East Coast is really weird because you lose all that time because of the time zone jump and everything. You'll leave at noon and you might get here at 7 or 8 p.m.
Yeah, I'm getting in really late, but and of course with Southwest, you're changing in some weird place along the way, but it's fine. It's all good as long as there's no drama on the airplane. I'm gonna be totally happy.
Now people have gotten to see the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles version of being a comic book writer, right?
Yes.
So as I was going through the book, the art stands out as well. I believe your artist is Gwen Tavares.
Gwen Tavares, yes. Gwen. Yeah. Emily did the original 6-issue miniseries and then went on to bigger and better. God bless her heart there. No, I'm really happy for her. And then I hired Gwen through recommendation of a friend, and she was the perfect segue. She's nailed it. I love her art. She is an amazing person. I wish she could clone herself so she could work faster, but we all ask that of our artists, but there's only so much you can do. But she's awesome. Yes.
Yeah, it really brings the book, to life. And I really, as soon as I was flipping through it, it feels proper for the time period as well. Like, I know it's weird, I mean, to say that art fits the 1800s, but I feel like it does. Like, was that kind of one of the reactions you got when you first saw some of the pages back?
Absolutely. And I will say that I had hired, I've done this with all my artists for the books, both Emily and Gwen, is since I had worked with her before, I said, could you do, basically a portrait of Granville and Tesla, because they're going to be our leads. And I don't want to be surprised when I start getting pages of what these guys are going to look like. And I think it's actually in the book. I think I included the portrait in the back where you see Tesla and Granville. I think they're in there. Oh, no, I take that back. They're in Scourge. Oh, they're in Scourge. Yeah. They're in Scourge. But she nailed it. I mean, it was absolutely gorgeous what she did. And but what was really funny is that when we first started working together on Scourge of the Mechanical Men, is I would see her posts on Facebook of how she was doing research of what men's socks look like in 1895.
They weren't wearing Nikes. Yeah, they look different than ours now, didn't they?
Oh yeah, and so and women's shoes, and so I try to help my artists out as much as possible. So when I'm writing, I collect reference images, and when I send them the script, I send them reference images just so okay, this is, you don't have to do this thing, but this is kind of what this carpet bag looked like, or this dress looked like, or this instrument look like. And of course I can't think of all the things, but yeah, she got really intrigued with shoes and the socks. And
I was the wardrobes, and again, I'm not a historian, but I like period pieces, but the wardrobes seem really correct. You don't see him wearing a t-shirt in the 1800s.
No,
she
you
really
won't.
did it well.
Yeah, she did.
With even the men's and the women's attire, because the men's are kind of in those handkerchief ties and everything, and I thought it was very perfect for the period piece that it was. Yeah.
No, Gwen has done an excellent job, and it's been a blast working with her. And when she was finishing up some pages for the Book of Demons, there's a particular character. I want to give it away, and I would just say oh, how did you like finishing that page? And she says, yeah, I really liked it because I got to off this particular character, and and I really wanted to do that.
Another thing that I thought was awesome, and obviously she helped with, I believe, because it says the character portraits are done by her.
Correct.
You actually add a lot of that, front and back matter. You've got the introduction, you got the prologue, you have a couple of pinups in the back, you have supporting character bios, and then you have that Why Philadelphia. Is that always how you've done your Kickstarters and everything? You've always added that extra matter to your books, or was this something you kind of did once you got to Source Point?
No, I've always added extras. I've done that since we were doing the original 6-issue miniseries, just because I wanted the Kickstarter backers to feel that they were getting something a little more special. And all of the original issues include commentary, and I actually talk about okay, this is where we screwed up. And I would show them okay, I forgot about XYZ. And so I had to go to the colorist and go okay, can you fix this? Because I didn't catch it when Emily was doing, the art, and then they would fix it. And so I would talk about how hey, we screw stuff up sometimes. It happens, but we were able to catch it in time. But just to let you know, this is a process.
Yeah.
And it just, you do what you do and you go fix it.
So we got 5 minutes left here. While
Mhm.
you mentioned process, I always ask my guests this, and I almost forgot to ask you. What were your influences growing up? I preferably, like, because we're talking comics, what were your comic book influences? But you also have written novels. So what were your writing influences growing up? What did you read growing up?
I read a lot of science fiction and fantasy.
Okay.
Probably the first book my mother ever read to me was A Wrinkle in Time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I will, and I've said this before if people have heard me talk, I came to comics very late in life. And that was because my brother probably has one of the largest graded collections of Daredevil comics in the country, but I never liked superheroes. And it just wasn't my thing. And then when just as a side note, Boston Metaphysical was originally a TV pilot that I wrote when I was an MFA program at UCLA in screenwriting, and I adapted that into a graphic novel. And in the process of that, I read a lot of independent comics, which I didn't even know existed. And it kind of pissed me off because no one had told me about these before. And they were great. Yep. I mean, they were awesome. And yeah, it was stupid, but no one had ever. My brother didn't do that. My parents were not comics people. I mean, no one in my family was. And so I started reading this and I said, this is great. And, I took the deep dive and I just, never came out.
That's an awesome origin story. It's great how to hear everybody else's kind of comic origin story, because no two peoples are the same, first of all,
Yeah.
And then it's awesome to hear about the people that didn't know about comics growing up, because I'm technically a kid who did not read comics growing up. I watched a couple of the movies, but I never read them. And again, same thing. Nobody ever told me there was these comics that existed by Image and Valiant and all these companies that didn't have superheroes. And granted, they made their own superheroes as well. But there was a lot of those that just were just a slice of life or ghost stories and things like that. And I think actually this is a perfect way to segue to this question. From then to now, how have you feel like you've seen indie comics grow or develop? Because now we have Kickstarter, we have companies like Source Point. I mean, how have you seen that grow and notoriety wise?
Hugely. I mean, it's I probably started this journey maybe 9-10 years ago now. I'm pretty sure. I don't like to think that far back. And I remember in Kickstarter, particularly in the early days, if anyone threw something up, they were getting funded. And then after about 2013, 2014, that all changed because I think a lot of backers were getting burned. People weren't completing their projects. And then you just started seeing everyone on Kickstarter up their game. The bar kept rising of the quality that you would find on Kickstarter. And in fact, I read an article, it must have been 3-4 years ago, that talked about Kickstarter potentially being the third largest publisher of comics behind Marvel and DC.
That's still the case.
That's still the case, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be. And I mean, one of the reasons is because independent comic creators themselves, I think, started working together as a community. And everybody is working to up their game. And that's why you see so many excellent projects on Kickstarter now. And you have been for the last number of years. I mean, I don't have enough budget to support everybody I want to on Kickstarter. So I try to save some. And if they're at a con, I'll go by their table and I'm going to buy it now. I couldn't do it then, but I can buy it now. And we're all good. But that's one of the main things I really like about the independent creator community is we all help each other rise.
Yes, I think that's so true, especially now that we've started backing, projects like Wolves and everything that have retailer tiers on Kickstarter. We back them, and then I always find myself seeing backer updates, and these guys are not just saying thank you for backing my thing, but they're also saying, hey, my buddy has a Kickstarter over here. Can you please help get them funded? And I didn't realize how far that goes until we were running our own Kickstarter, and we realized a lot of the pledges were coming from that way. But it really is a community when it comes to the independent creators, at least at the Kickstarter level, because nobody is trying to knock anybody down. I've noticed it's usually actually trying to keep each other up.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Absolutely. And I do a lot of cross promotion myself when I run Kickstarters. And I've already been, there's a couple people I know I'll be promoting, and probably my next update when I do that. But I know we're going to end soon, but I want to mention one thing before we go.
Yeah.
In October 20th, we will be launching a Kickstarter for the first ever Boston Metaphysical audio drama. Oh. It is a brand new story, and it is based in the timeline of the original 6-issue miniseries. So it's just Samuel, Caitlin, and Granville, none of the newer characters that you see. And it's a full cast, sound effects, music. I have the terrific team of Eddie Louise Clark and Chip Michael, who are the production team behind Sage and Savant, who are my production team, lucky me, and some fabulous actors. So we've actually pretty much done with all the recording. By the time
completed.
By the time we launch in October, I believe we should probably have all the episodes done up into the sound effects, but not the music.
Okay.
And so we probably have a delivery date of like December, January, so we could get all the music, integrated into that.
That's awesome. That's going to be really unique, and I think people are going to have to check that out. You said it's going to start on Kickstarter October 21st?
Yes, October 20th. October 20th is when we launch. And I'll be publicizing that more as we get a little closer. And I've already started doing that a little bit at a time. That's just how I work. I just do dribs and drabs, and then, build and until we're there.
And if people want to follow your updates, where can they follow you? You got Twitter. Where else are you at?
I'm on Facebook as well. Boston Metaphysical Society Comic. Twitter is MHolly-ROSING. Instagram is I think it's MHolly, numeral 1. I always forget. And of course the website, BostonMetaphysicalSociety.com. And yes, this young lady is.
Do you already have the landing page for the Kickstarter?
I do. And
so if you want, you can just drop it in do I not even have a private chat, Steven? What is this?
Do we have a private?
Oh, you can drop it in a private chat, and I can copy and paste it into the comments for her.
Okay. Yeah, I will go find that. Hang on.
Yeah, Jennifer is an artist or a creator. And, I know she for sure draws her own comics. I don't know if she writes them, but Jennifer's also a creator around here.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. Let me go. And SourcePoint's just announced that we're also, they're the badge sponsor for New York Comic Con.
Oh.
And Boston Metaphysical. Oh, everything's going slow here. I'm trying to get that. I should have had that up. Didn't want to. I will find it somewhere. Somewhere. It's just not coming up. Yeah, everything's lagging on my internet.
You're good. I can always, if you just send it to us, I can get it to Jennifer because she's a regular of ours. I know we interact through Facebook. So Jennifer, I'll make sure to get you the link to that. And so nobody forgets, Boston Metaphysical, what do we got? Spirit of Rebellion. Spirit of Rebellion one shot is out on Wednesdays LCS is everywhere. You can grab a copy here at the Collective, but if you're from out of town, you can ask your comic shop to get it. They should have been able to get it from Source Point. And Madeline, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Awesome. I can't wait to sell out of this copy again and just go back and get some more trade paperbacks and everything. But it's been awesome to finally get the writer's point of view of Boston Metaphysical Society. I can't wait to have this on the shelf tomorrow.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on. You have a good one.
You too.
So thank you so. Oh my God, I look like an alien. Thank you so much for Madeline for coming on today. Boston Metaphysical Society, Age of Rebellion is on sale Wednesday. Comic stores everywhere. Reserve your copy at the Collective, and be back Wednesday tomorrow on Steven's Dollar Auction. He's gonna have this signed Todd McFarlane book. That's gonna be the money.
What?
This.
What's that?
This Todd
What's
McFarlane.
this? What's this?
Oh, take it.
What's this?
Take it.
What's this? Oh, don't you know?
Zoom. It's a little zoomed.
I know.
Zoom,
Look at
zoom,
that.
zoom.
Look at that. Todd McFarlane, 1 and 250. We'll see you here tomorrow.
5:30 to
5:30.
7:30. Don't miss it. Your head's in the way of
I
where it's
gotta